intelligence is very interesting. Some people have higher linguistic capabilities, some people have to a lesser degree, but it is a very important form of intelligence. It is that what makes us able to write poetry, appreciate poetry, write prose. Some people are gifted with languages, some people can learn languages much easier, so that comes from linguistic intelligence. What we just saw in the invocation, which is musical intelligence. It is as important an intelligence as any other. Some people are more musically inclined, more musically appreciative than other people. So when Yehudi Menuhin was 3 years old, his parents smuggled him into the San Francisco Philharmonic. You couldn't take a 3-year-old into a Philharmonic for obvious reasons. Now, not only he stayed quiet throughout the performance, he actually appreciated the different musical instruments and came back and demanded that he needed a violin, and he mastered the violin before the age of 8. So this was a great example of musical intelligence. Something called spatial intelligence. You know, imagine in the olden times when we were seafaring people, we used to take our ships laden with goods in the high seas, and imagine that there's a stormy night. There'll be invariably an individual in the crew who would tell the true north without looking at the stars, which you cannot look at anyway because the night is overcast. That comes from what is called spatial intelligence, people who can navigate terrains, organizations much better than other people. Then there's kinesthetic intelligence. There is a Rahul Dravid, or there's a Sachin Tendulkar, who's got basically intelligence in his muscles. And kinesthetic intelligence is very interesting. It is most pronounced in not just cricket, but in martial arts, or when people are doing, let's say, fencing. 2 world champions at fencing. Now, there you do not have even a split second to anticipate the move of the other individual, or to think of what is the best counter move to make, because that could mean the difference between life and death. So you don't have time to think. In fact, if you think, you are dead. So does it mean that these people randomly actually choose their moves? The answer is no. They do it on the basis of what is called kinesthetic intelligence. Their muscles have memory. Their muscles have learning capability. So when you have Sachin Tendulkar batting, actually the synaptic extension of the brain are in his muscles. So that's what kinesthetic intelligence is all about. Then there are some people who have something called intrapersonal intelligence more than other people. Now, intrapersonal intelligence is the capacity to understand who you are. Intrapersonal intelligence gives us emotional self-confidence. Intrapersonal people, they know themselves much more. So that itself requires a certain amount of intelligence and certain kind of intelligence. And then there are people who have the 7th form of intelligence, which is interpersonal intelligence. You know, they can walk into a room and exactly figure out what the dynamics in the room is without even being briefed. In fact, a couple of days back, I met somebody in Paris, and we're discussing Nandan, and he was one of the senior most people in Infosys at one point in time, and no longer with Infosys. And he told this interesting thing about Nandan. He said that Nandan can come from somewhere, get into a meeting room without knowing what's exactly going on, but in a split second, he knows the dynamics. He knows who's holding power, who's actually what the agenda is, and he has the capacity to influence the conversation to go the way he wants it to go. It's a very unique capability. It comes from interpersonal intelligence. And then there is this intelligence called naturalistic intelligence. Some people will have higher naturalistic intelligence, and this was very importantly required for millions of years that we have been on this earth. So as hunters, as we went into the forests, there had to be one member in the tribe who would see the hoof mark on the sand and tell the tribesmen exactly what to expect, because the gap between becoming the hunter and the hunted was very minimal in those days. So you had to have the capacity to understand which mushroom can kill you, which animal call means which other animal is around. That comes from naturalistic intelligence. Last but not the least, Howard Gardner talks about existential intelligence. Some people can just connect up with a spiritual reservoir of strength in a moment's notice, in a split second. They can go into a trance, they can get huge amount of energy from nowhere. That comes from the capacity to build existential intelligence. So 9 forms of intelligence, not just one. Now, in later times, Howard